We have Deac Bogdan Daniel with the white pieces taking on Praggnanandhaa in the fourth round of the Superbet Chess Classic 2025. Deac has been in very interesting form in this tournament. We have a Gary Kasparov here, the guest of honor, who's going to make the first move here. And Gary pushes the pawn to d4. Look at the smile on Prag's face and also Diac's face there. A handshake by the GOAT, by one of the GOATs of the game. And the pawn is back. Now that Gary has touched the pawn, it's going to be a fiery game of chess. And now we are ready to go. Deac does open the game with d4. And Praggnanandhaa takes the time and plays d5. This is the same opening that he played against Gukesh in this tournament. And to c4, he had played the Queen's Gambit accepted, which is maybe the reason why Deac goes knight f3. Pragg gets his knight out to f6. And now we have c4. Well, Pragg can still go for the Queen's Gambit accepted, but this time he goes for the Queen's Gambit declined with e6, opening up his bishop on this diagonal. The knight comes out to c3. And now maybe it's Pragg's turn to just maybe go bishop e7. He goes for the Ragozin. Now the Ragozin is a mixture of Nimzo-Indian and Queen's Gambit declined. Queen's Gambit declined with e6, d5, Nimzo-Indian with bishop b4, and a very solid line chosen with e3. Because generally you would want your bishop to be outside the pawn chain. Now actually we've transposed into the Nimzo-Indian. Like for example, you can see here if I go d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, e3, which is a well-known line, and then d5, knight f3, we would reach here. Pragg goes after e3, pawn to c5, very solid move, symmetrical, and Deac takes the pawn in the center. And Pragg now takes it back with the knight. He could have also taken back with the pawn, but there is a nasty pin here, and I think bishop d2 makes a lot of sense. So he plays his bishop here. The question is, has white got anything out of the opening? There are few structures he can choose from. He can go a3, but Pragg goes cd4. I mean, he would have loved in general, like if you go castle, to go a3, bishop c3. This could be a structure to play here for white, but Pragg instantly took here on d4. Knight takes on d5. So Deac attacks the bishops here. And then bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, queen takes d5. And now queen takes d4. Woo. So he wants to trade the queens. It was also possible to take with the knight, but he took with the queen. Queen takes, and now very important to take back with the knight. So if you take with the pawn, you are unnecessarily getting into an isolated queen-pawn position. So knight takes. And white has a small edge here, perhaps because his bishop can develop and so on. But this move by Pragg really is a very nice one. Because with bishop d7, he's preparing knight to c6. He's ready to trade. Deac goes rook c1. And maybe he gets in here. I think Pragg's idea is knight c6 makes a lot of sense. Knight comes out to c6. And now trying to sort of go for the softened dark squares doesn't help because king e7 and then rook joins in. So Pragg has equalized out of the opening and Deac takes on c6. You can look at Pragg there. He's not particularly happy with this. Bishop takes c6 because there's hardly a fight here. The position is equal. You can see Pragg just making his moves with great confidence, having 1 hour 26 minutes. I mean, the game is essentially over in 4 minutes for Pragg here. because bishop c4. This is one of the things in classical chess, or you can say standard chess, is that when white player is unambitious, then it's very difficult for black to stir up play without taking considerable risks. Here basically Praggnanandhaa tried to be solid, but in a way, if you see, it is still possible to continue playing and try for something. King e2, the rooks are connected, and now rook to c7 by Pragg. He's trying to double down the c file. It's interesting. And let's see what Deac now plays. Rook c3. He also wants to double, because there could be a very silly blunder, which is like if you want to pin here, but then this comes as a check. So rook c3. Pragg gets his rook on the c file. And I think rook c1 now makes a lot of sense. He didn't go for it. He goes bishop d3 back. And somewhere he's attacking this pawn. I don't know if it's safe to take, because g6 would trap the bishop, and then king f8, king g7. So bishop d5 attacking a2. Trading rooks is the offer here. Deac takes. Rook takes. Now a2 is hanging. And that's actually not hanging because of rook a1, and you can chop off the pawn on a7. But b3 being very, very safe. And Pragg goes e5. Well, a dream scenario here for Pragg would be if he gets g6, f5, e4, trying to gain some space in the position. But getting ambitious here doesn't seem very likely. h4 played, and now Pragg must do something about his h7 pawn, because if he traps with g6, there is h5. So h6 played, and now Deac can try to gain space with h4, h5, but then he would fix his pawn on a light square, which is the same color as his bishop and opponent's bishop. So he goes king d2, which is the safer choice, and maybe he's trying to now go for a rook trade with rook c1. Pawn to a5 played. And now rook b1. Did not trade the rooks, but maybe Deac wants a3 and b4. Pragg goes back, rook c8. Sometimes you just keep fighting in such positions and maybe a chance shows up. Goes a3, and the plan here is b4 for sure. You can see how Deac is changing the colors of his pawns with b4, putting it out on the dark squares. Opposite color of this bishop here. King d6. And bishop e2. Well, both the players keep coming back on the board. They're moving away with every move, because, you know, in a way, this position is very simple for both of them. After all, they are super GMs. g5, and now Deac can take hg. He does decide to take h takes g5. And then the rook can swing over to h1 and h6. But for now, the b3 pawn is hanging. So he first pushes the bishop away, e4. The bishop goes back to e6. White does have a small edge here. Sorry, black does have a small edge in the form of these pawns being on the same color as the bishop, but that's just too small an edge, you know. b4 played. And Pragg takes. Oh, he doesn't take. He goes rook a8. And if you take, he'll take back. B takes a5. Now the b7 pawn is hanging. Pragg takes on a5. Rook takes b7 taken. Rook takes a3 taken. And Deac goes for a check. Pragg thinking about whether to play the king here or here. Goes king c7. And now maybe rook b5 and... Oh, 1 second. Rook b5 could be a very big blunder. Rook a2 check. King e1 or d1 and I just take this. Oh my god. Still, there are always tricks. So rook b2. King d6. Pragg goes back. Deac gives a check. King c7. And there's nothing more to play for here. The players are repeating and we will get a draw here. Check. And Pragg calls the arbiter here for a threefold repetition. And they agree to a draw. Well, not the most exciting game of the tournament, but I guess it suited both the players. Deac maybe was not keen for a fight with the white pieces after the opening stage as Pragg equalized easily. And Praggnanandhaa, after scoring a very nice win against Nodirbek yesterday, gets an absolutely easy draw with the black pieces. And that's more than enough for this tournament. He's on 2.5 out of 4. He's on +1. And this is a good day at the office for Praggnanandhaa.